going to be part of the general training that we do. It's how it's going to start off, but towards the end of the training, that's when I'm really going to dive in a little bit more about having all of those member types, and we can brainstorm on that. So let's go ahead and jump in. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to just call out at me. I know I'm the kind of person where if I think of a question and if you keep going, I'll totally forget what it is. So don't hesitate to yell out at me, okay? Awesome. So when you guys log into the back end of your site, have you had an opportunity to log in yet?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So when you log into the back end of your site, you're going to be greeted with this membership dashboard page. This is where you'll always land. This is the default page once you log in. And this area is comprised of a couple of different dashboards. The first being our current membership rosters. So you'll notice here, we have 2,346 prospects. We have 3 admin, and then I have just a member type in here just to show you where your member types will be housed. And so as these are created, and I'm going to use my MemberClicks University. This is like our little test site that we play around in, just to show you once your member types are created, they're going to kind of be all over here on the left-hand side. So here's kind of my first point. Just in taking glimpses at your member types, having a lot is going to be difficult for you to get a good grasp on how many members you have in each member type. So these will be divided out. As I import your database, these will be divided out per member type. So you'll be able to see exactly how many people are in each one. You can click on any of these numbers. So if I go back to your site, I can click on the number 3 admin, and this is going to take me to a profile list of those 3 individuals. One of those, this last one is me. From the profile list, there are so many things that we can do. We will talk more about this towards the end of our training today as well. To go back to that home page, I just press the little house in the top left-hand corner. So you'll actually be able to watch your member types move from active. There will be a graced column. And then once they move from grace, they'll move to the lapse status. Just to reiterate, when your members have lapsed, you're not losing their profile. Nothing is changing about their profile to you guys on the administrative side. They're still in their member type, just in the lapsed column. However, to the member, they're not going to be able to log in with their login credentials when they're lapsed. They won't be able to access any of the member resources. They won't be able to access any of the social community features, and they're not going to be able to take advantage of any member type pricing. Any questions on that piece?
Nope.
So then we have the second dashboard over here for the membership dashboard, and that's new members in the last 90 days. This is just going to separate out those members that have joined in the last 90 days so you can easily contact them, reiterating the membership benefits they're gaining by being a part of your association. So it just kind of pulls them off to the side. Same thing here. You'll be able to click on those numbers to go into profile list, which you can export or contact them from that list. The next set of dashboards we have are the event dashboards. So this is past event attendance and then upcoming expected event attendance. This is going to be pulling from any event registration forms that we have created. I have your forms. I have not created them yet, but you'll be able to see those pull into these dashboards depending on the date that is set up in each of those. So this will just give you, it'll only show you 3. Of course, you can look further into the forms, which we'll talk more about when we get to our form training, which will be our 3rd training. But you'll be able to see up to 3 past events, the date they were held on, how many people attended, and up to 3 upcoming events, the date that they will be held on, and how many people have registered so far. Lastly, we have our financial dashboard. So our aged receivables is going to show you how many or how much money is outstanding in invoices by how many days. So these numbers along the bottom, this is going to create a bar graph. So current means that those invoices are current, they're up to date. 1 to 30, the bar graph will populate with how many invoices are past due 1 to 30 days, past due 31 to 60 days, past due 61 to 90 days, and then past due 91 plus days. And then lastly, we have our sales over time. So this chart will actually show us how much money has been brought in per revenue account by month. So you'll see this line adjust depending on how much money was brought in. And we can filter this by revenue account. And these are the revenue accounts that you guys supplied me with. So Would this have come from your chart of accounts in QuickBooks?
Yes.
And those are the only two that you have?
That money goes in, yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's totally fine. Usually there's a few more, like membership dues and maybe like events, but I would assume that I guess membership dues are just filtering into the general account.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we could select what filter we wanted or what revenue account we wanted to filter, apply that filter, and then we would see our line adjust to that revenue account. So it's kind of everything for this snapshot area. So this is just like a quick glance of what's going on in your system. We can look at details on each of these items. Before I move forward, any questions on any of these pieces?
I don't think so.
Okay, awesome. This one's pretty straightforward. So the next thing that I want to look at with you guys is our account settings. You'll really not need to view this account settings all of the time. This is going to be something that you'll probably glance at every once in a while. And the main reason being your account number is housed in this area. So once you guys have graduated with me and you're ready to start calling into the help team, they're going to ask you for an account number. So you don't have to memorize it or write it down. You can always find your account number in this account settings page. This is also a great place to keep track of how many profiles you've used. So profiles at this top area, this is custom profiles. So once I've imported your members, this obviously, this number is going to go up. Prospects, all of those are imported at this time. So you've used 2,346 prospect profiles out of the 300 that are allotted in your level that you're with us in with us. We have your time zone listed, so you're on the central time zone. So your membership year technically, and remind me of this, I know that we have so many monthly, bi-monthly, or semi-annually, all that kind of stuff. But your annual memberships, are those anniversaries? So the day that they join, they are 1 year from that day?
No, they start, everything is calendar year, so they start January 1st and end December 31st.
Okay, what about your semi-annual and monthly and all of those? Are those, like if I joined?
If you joined right now, you would still be a member for the calendar year.
If I joined monthly?
If you joined right now and you wanted semi-annual, it would still be for 2017 based on the calendar.
Okay, good to know. Awesome. I'm making a quick note to myself. Okay. Right now we have your member number turned on. Of course, you can hide the member number from your members reviewing it, but I know that that's something that you guys are using, so you can either make it available or hide it, and I'll show you where you can set those permissions in this training as well today. You are using QuickBooks, so I have QuickBooks turned on. Notifications, I put in the reply to email address that you guys supplied in that account settings document, so whenever an email comes from MemberClicks, if somebody replies to that email, it'll be going to this address listed here. You guys can always come in this area and change this if it needs to be updated.
Perfect.
And then the billing contact info is just for MemberClicks to have on file.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any questions about our account settings?
No.
Awesome, so I'm gonna go ahead and save this. The next piece we're gonna look at are the financials. So that's under the financial tab and invoices. Right now you don't have any invoices created, so this is a little bit hard to picture. So we're gonna go back to my MemberClicks test site. Same thing, I'm gonna go to financial and invoices. So this is what this invoice list will look like as invoices are populated. Anytime an invoice is created, forever and ever, it will always be housed in this invoice list area. If it's open, paid, voided, whatever the status may be. So obviously over time, you're gonna have a ton of invoices in your system. We've made it easy for you guys to search your invoices. using the search bar in the top right-hand corner. So I know I have a few test invoices in here. If I searched my first name, I could have searched my last name, I could have searched my organization, or I could have searched my invoice number to find the invoices listed here for me. So these are the invoices that I have open in the system. Well, open, paid, voided, any of the statuses. If I wanted to further filter these invoices, I can use these buttons along the top. So if I just wanted to see my open invoices, I can select open. And now it's limited what we're viewing down to just this one open invoice for me. So we could have also searched for pending, paid, partial, or voided. Also, something that I feel like not a lot of my associations realize, you can click on any of these column headers to alphabetize or alphanumeric, whatever. You can put them in order or take them out of order. So if I wanted to view this by total amount, then I can click on the total amount and it'll show me from least to greatest. And then I can also do this in reverse. Same thing with due dates. If we were looking at multiple people, we could sort by last name or first name. If I happen to call you guys and say, hey, I can't find my invoice, can you please resend it to me? You can always look up my invoice by my name, see my open invoice, tag that invoice, and you can email it. This will allow you to resend this invoice to me. The default email address, whatever's in my profile, is going to pop up in this area. You can change that, or you can add additional recipients. So that's a quick way that you can resend this email or invoice to me. You can also create a PDF. If you wanted to create a PDF of all open invoices, you would just tag all invoices. So not just for me, but we could do all open. I can view all 74 by expanding our page count, tag all, and then I could create a PDF that will allow us to print off all of those open invoices. We can also void invoices from this area. Once we've found a specific invoice that we want to view, we can click on that invoice number and it's going to bring up the invoice for us. This is exactly what y'all's invoices will look like. Of course, it'll be your logo in the top right-hand corner and your association information over here in the left-hand corner. It'll read the same though. It'll say membership renewal, it'll list the membership type, and it'll list the new expiration date. There's a notes section on your invoices. I want you to keep note of this because you guys will have the ability to set what notes you want to show up on the invoices. You have the ability to add internal notes. So down here, adding internal notes to the invoice, we can save that comment and it'll show you when you created that comment. I love this because if I voided an invoice and walked away, I would completely forget why I voided the invoice, right? So that's a great way for you to keep track of notes, why you're voiding things, why maybe you made a partial payment, that type of stuff. We can also remove this note. You have the ability to credit invoices, void this invoice from the direct invoice, download this single invoice, same thing, printing it off, or you can pay the invoice. So the most common feature that I see, or the most common thing that I see that happens is you have people that call and say, hey, I saw I have an open invoice. Can you apply my credit card information over the phone? Or maybe you receive a check and you want to apply that check. You would just select pay invoice. You can apply that credit card information, or you can make this an offline payment and select what type of offline payment you're creating. I know I've been blabbing for a little bit. Any questions so far on the financial piece or how to make these offline payments?
No.
Can they pay those directly themselves when they get it? Do they have the option of just clicking pay invoice?
Will somebody say that back? I heard a couple pieces, but not all of it.
So when they get the invoice, will those options be there that they can just click pay invoice and they can put in their credit card information through their email and do that there, or do they have to log in and do that?
Yeah, so great question. So when they receive their renewal invoices, it'll be the information, the verbiage that you guys provided to me that they'll receive. And there will be a link at the bottom that the system puts in They'll click that link. It'll bring up the invoice. They don't have to log in or anything. It's just going to bring up the invoice, and there's a button on that invoice that says Pay Now. If they click Pay Now, it'll allow them to apply payment to the invoice. If there is any other type of invoice that they've received, we're going to talk in a second about how you can set up notifications for them to receive a notification, like for an event, or maybe if they're a new member, if they have an outstanding invoice. When they receive those notifications, same process. There's going to be a link at the bottom. They can click it, and then they'll just be able to pay the invoice from there. They also can log into their accounts. So in their profile, which we'll talk more about in the social community training, or Jay will talk to you guys about that in the social community training, they'll be able to see all of their invoices in the system, including voided, paid, whatever the status may be, just like you can view individuals' invoices in the system, and they can apply payment from those invoices as well if they have any that are open. So there's a lot of ways that they can pay invoices.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. So once we apply that payment from the invoice, whether it's offline or it was their credit card information you took over the phone, as soon as you hit submit, it's going to reflect that the invoice is paid. Of course, if there was a partial payment, you would just change the amount to be paid, and that will reflect as a partial payment. That'll be the status of the invoice moving forward until the rest of the invoice is paid.
Okay, so for like our recurring payments, we can do the going through authorize.net currently. We could go in here, do offline payment, put the amount of the recurring payment until we can get this up and going through all of member clicks, correct?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused on how you're thinking that process is.
So I think we probably are too. Currently what we're doing, and I'm guessing we're going to have to do it somewhat similar with member clicks, is that if we just have a box that we know who in the database who's recurring, we run those through authorize.net on a recurring basis, and then we just know in the database who's been paid. So once those credit cards expire or we get new numbers or whatever, we're going to slowly be putting those into member clicks, so we don't, and we'll be working both out of the recurring and authorize.net and member clicks until we get everybody. Jen's giving me dirty looks like this.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
That was so bizarre. I feel like GoToMeeting kicked me out. And so after I said, can you explain that process to me one more time, it just went blank. I didn't hear anything. I'm sorry if y'all just did it all over again.
It's just talking and talking.
And talking.
I'm so sorry. I don't even, went totally silent. And then it just hung up my phone. I'm like, I didn't do that. What's going on? I'm so sorry. So anyways, go ahead.
So how are you thinking of doing it? Is that how you're thinking about doing it, or are you just,
I don't know. If we're using authorize.net, okay, let's pretend that we don't currently have recurring payments, and we're getting on a brand new database, and everything is and now we're gonna start taking recurring payments. How would that work if we weren't currently doing that?
I'm so sorry. Are you maybe a little bit farther away from the phone?
I'm further away than Ian. I can yell though.
Talk one more time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So how does member clicks currently, how for all the other recurring associations, how do they do it?
So we can do recurring payments. So automatic renewals is what you're talking about, correct?
No. Well, yes, I guess.
So like a reoccurring payment, or what we would call an automatic renewal. Basically, that so anybody's information that you've collected in the past, and I got confirmation on this, anybody's information that you've collected in the past, we're going to have to recollect their credit card information in member clicks. So even though they might have been reoccurring before, since you're changing systems, they will not be reoccurring because it's almost like we've lost their credit card information that we had on file previously, because now MemberClicks needs to get it. MemberClicks needs to gather their credit card information and store it so that it reflects. So even if you stick with authorized.net, it might be showing in authorized.net, but it's not going to be reflecting on the MemberClicks end, because MemberClicks needs to have the credit card information to actually pay the invoices that are in MemberClicks. That's what we want it to, that's where we want the payments to reflect. So even if you have people that are reoccurring now, moving them into MemberClicks, we're going to basically, my suggestion and the way that I typically do it is we would send out all the, so when we get ready to launch, you're going to send out a welcome email. If I was you guys, I would suggest adding some verbiage. Hey, if you are a reoccurring member with us previously, if we had automatic renewals for your dues, since we're changing systems, we're going to need to recapture your credit card information. So please select that please select in MemberClicks. Please pay this first invoice, select that you wish to be part of the auto renewals, and then moving forward, your auto renewals will take place. So then when we send out the notifications, we'll send them out to everybody, for everybody to pay their dues this first time. All of the invoices will need to be paid. And then if people check that they want to be a part of the auto renewal, then that'll be taken care of moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what y'all were thinking? Is that how you were thinking this would happen, or is that a little bit different? It is. Oh, okay. Perfect.
But I think we were also going to continue running everyone that is currently recurring like we are now, so that we don't lose people that don't, choose to click on an email.
We understand that there's going to be double entry for a little bit with the piece on our side for the people who are currently using recurring payments through our authorized.net system until we can get everybody through MemberClicks.
Love it. Yeah. So that way, during this transitional period, you're still getting those auto renewals. You're not missing anybody. And
Right.
then when we've made the full transition, that's when we'll start. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And when we launch, we'll probably need to be a little strategic about it and think about a time when the majority of your members have paid for the time, for the people that needed to pay, and kind of in a transitional period where people won't be actively paying invoices. And I know for you guys that kind of is always going on, but since it's still a little bit on the calendar year, we might be able to find a gap time where that would be best, which I think we talked about on our kickoff call anyways.
Yeah, and we'll just have it started for 2018 recurring payments with that. So that'll be easy.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. That makes sense. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item. I'm going to go back to the invoice list by selecting the invoice list icon. Now we're jumping into your first piece of homework from today's training, and that's going to be invoice templates. So I know you guys sent me the list of notifications that you want to go out for dues renewals. Those are already in the system. Those are awesome. But what if there is another type of invoice created in the MemberClicks product? How is your member going to know? How are they being notified that an invoice is open for them, right? So maybe in the past you guys were having to follow up with open invoices and say, hey, we haven't paid your invoice that's open with us, or whatever the case may be, whether it's for an event, a new member, maybe a sponsorship or partnership, whatever type of invoice that it could have been. So our system can do the dirty work for you by sending out notifications for open invoices, or the awesome thing, also sending out a notification for payment confirmation, saying, hey, we received your payment. Thanks for paying your open invoice, or whatever verbiage you want to say. So did you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So to begin, I would suggest by first sitting down and writing a list of all the different types of invoices our system is going to create for you, not on a minuscule or specific level as to every single event, but maybe one that can encompass all your events, unless you have like a big conference once a year, and then you might want to send out special notifications in regards to that big conference. Overall, though, you'll probably want to keep it pretty general so you're not having to come in here and change this. Instead, once you set these up, they're good for kind of all of time. And so when you get ready to create a new invoice template, you will definitely need to have one created. And I went ahead and created this default. I'm going to talk about that in a second. You'll want to select this create an invoice template. You'll definitely want one for new members. So after they take the membership application, they're going to need to have some type of notification going out to them. You're going to set up a net due date. 30 days is most typical. The footer information is that notes section that I pointed out on the invoice. So this is usually remit payment to information, or maybe some information about, like if it's a donation, about percentages, like where the donation is going, or if it's a tax write-off or something like that. Down at the bottom is where you'll need to turn on what notifications you want to use, and then you'll need to edit the email and put in the verbiage that you want to go out in the notification. For example, new members typically, in my experience, have to pay at time of taking the membership application. So they can't submit that membership application unless they're paying with a credit card right then. Because of that, you probably won't need the new invoice email, because you don't need to let them know they have an open invoice because they're paying it at time of taking the membership application. Same thing for a reminder or past due. They won't need to be reminded, and it won't be past due because they're paying it at time of submitting the membership application. But at minimum, you're going to want to set up the payment notification email saying, hey, thanks so much for your payment. We appreciate you becoming a member with us. You know, somebody will be reaching out to you in the next couple of weeks, or however you guys, you know, whatever your normal kind of cadence is for communicating with your new members. But you would just want to put in that verbiage in this area to create that email that's going to go out to them. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So in this instance, like I said, you'll probably only need the payment notification email. But then you'll want to create additional ones and just make sure that you're using those notifications as much as possible. I have to say this is probably the most common piece of homework that my associations skip over, but it can make your life so easy. And without using it, you're going to wind up with a lot of open invoices that are just sitting. Maybe not intentional by your members, but because they just forgot to pay it, or because they don't even know that they have an open invoice because they registered for this event and then they never received an email, right? So this is something that you can really use to leverage making sure that those open invoices are being paid and you're not having to chase down money because the system can do it for you. The default renewals. So this is for the renewal notifications, and the reason that I've created this for you guys, obviously the verbiage is coming from a separate bucket, right? You gave me that verbiage and it's coming from a separate place that I put in the system. I'm going to show you where that is hopefully today. And you won't need, so obviously we don't need to set up any verbiage in here, but it is going to pull the footer information from this area and the net due date of the invoice. It's also just a default template. So what that means is, let's say one day you guys forget to put on a form, on an event form, you forget to check that you want to use the event invoice template. Instead of the invoice not being created, it'll still be created, but with the default that I've set up here, which is just a better practice than the invoice not being created at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of everything for invoice template. Before I move on, any questions on this, or kind of the purpose or process of this?
No.
Awesome. The next item that I want to look at, and your second homework item, are invoice settings. It's the icon right next to the invoice template. If you guys will just place the logo, this logo is what's going to appear on the top right-hand corner of your invoice. So whatever logo you want to appear in that area, upload it from here. And then it's also going to be what information, which of the association information that you want to have shown on the top left-hand corner of the invoice. So usually that address will also be where checks are sent to. And so if you'll place that information in this organization info. We also have this area where we can select the next invoice number that we're starting at. My suggestion is leaving this at 1. We're going to create some test invoices together, and then after we've created those test invoices, you can change this invoice number to whatever real-time invoices the invoice number that you want to reflect on the real-time invoices. And so the reason I suggest that is so like invoice 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are tests, and then everything starting at 1,000 are real. To me, it's just easier to pinpoint which ones were used for our testing purposes and which ones are actual invoices you need to be keeping track of.
One question, when we do something like invoices for our PAC, is there a way to set up their logo in here as well, or is there only one way to do an invoice setting?
That's a great question. And so there's only one way that you can put in, there's only one logo that can appear on your invoices. And so what I've had my associations do in the past is they'll Photoshop or photo edit like a PAC logo in with the regular. So they're side by side, or so that it's somewhere on there, so that the invoice is reflecting kind of both. That's kind of been what I've seen people do in the past. The silly, I shouldn't say silly, it's kind of cool, but what a lot of times what my associations think is, oh, well, now that I'm like, when I create PAC invoices, I'll just change it in here. And then when I'm not creating those PAC invoices, I'll change it back. But the problem is this is dynamic. So whatever you update in here, it updates on all the invoices across the board.
Right.
So that's the only reason we wouldn't be able to do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Then we have your revenue accounts. This is our fourth icon. I put in this dues. I'm going to go ahead and delete this out because it's not something that it sounds like you're using. That was just kind of a default I created. I have these two revenue accounts in here. If you wanted to create a new revenue account, it's the easiest thing to do in our system. You just select add new revenue account, put in the account name. Description is optional. If it's for dues, you toggle dues. If it's not, you leave it toggled off. And then at that point, you would just save. And that's all you have to do to create a new revenue account. Lastly, we have your payment processor, which I know we're actually using authorized.net. So this is something that I'll need to have my guys put in the system for us so that we can select that. Once it's added, all you have to do is jump in here and put in your credentials from your authorized.net processor. Okay, any questions on this?
And we do have two accounts with authorized.net. We have our MSCA and our PAC one, and that's easy just to put in there.
That's no problem. So we can do like, whoops, auth.net PAC.
Perfect.
And I'll have these changed. Oh, cool, it's in here for us. So you can go ahead and put your credentials in here.
Awesome.
I think I can still, you know what, it might not let me. Oh, it did. Sweet, yeah, so you guys can go ahead and jump in here. And all you'll do is select edit. And then you'll just put in your login credentials, which you should have in your authorized.net information that they provided you when you first signed up.
Great.
Cool. Any questions on any of these financial pieces?
Nope.
Awesome. Okay. We only have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through the next homework item. And I really wanted to talk more about this. This will actually give you a great insight. So let's go ahead and dive into attributes. This brings me to two things that I want to talk about. So in our system, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around tabs today, moving forward after we get through this kind of first overall database training, it becomes a lot easier to follow along because we'll just be focusing on one tab at a time. So right now we're going to talk about attributes. So we're going to change our brains right now and start thinking about your members' profiles. And so attributes are what make up your members' profiles. We think of attributes in three different ways. We have three different kind of types. The first are built-in attributes, which are what you see on my screen here. Built-in attributes are just those pieces of information that we knew you collected on your members because all 1,750 of our clients collected on their associations. Things like their name, their email address, their physical address, their phone number, their organization. So we are not able to delete these. These will always be in the system, but I am able to customize them to fit your association. So what I mean by that is for like name as an example. I saw that you guys collected prefix, middle name. You also collected a suffix, and it found Dr., Mr., Miss, and Mrs. in your database as prefixes from your prospects. So we've turned these on because those are some pieces of information that you collect on your members. Same thing as email address. You have a main, but you also have a secondary, tertiary, and then a company email address. So I've built out these additional labels to house each of those different email addresses. Our system can hold up to 5 email addresses, physical addresses, and phone numbers for your members. So I could add one more on here. Maybe it would be, silly example, spouses, but spelled correctly. And so now at this time, you'll notice we can't add any more labels because it tells us that our 5 label limit has been reached. So we can collect up to 5 email addresses, 5 physical addresses, 5 phone numbers. These are those built-in attributes. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know, I would highly recommend not requiring these fields. I know it's like tempting to want to because you're like, oh yeah, well, we definitely need this information on our members. The only problem is if we make them required at this level, if you ever go into somebody's profile and you happen to not have one of those email addresses on file for them because they only had 2, they didn't have all 4 or all 3. But if you want to add, maybe you want to update their email, their main email address or one of their phone numbers, if you try to save it in their profile, this is on the administrative side, it's just going to tell you, nope, you can't save this information because you're missing required info.
Gotcha.
So please leave these off. We can make them required at a form level. So that way, when somebody goes to take a membership application, there can be required fields, so they can't bypass those. So moving forward, we can require information to be collected, but you're still probably never going to want to require all 4 email addresses or all 2 physical addresses or all 3 or 4 phone numbers, right? You'll just probably make the first one required. So we can do that at a form level. We don't want to do that in this area.
Perfect.
So that's our first type of attributes built in. Our second type of attribute are going to be system. Those are pieces of information that our product needs to keep track of your members' membership period and how much they owe in a dues amount. So that's things like their expiration date, their join date, their member number, their member type, all of those pieces of info. We can't even view that in this area. We can't change it or customize it or delete it or anything. It is what it is because the system needs it a certain way in order to kind of recognize it. But we can review that information in your members' profiles. Unfortunately, we probably won't get to that today. We'll kind of have to break this up in 2 trainings, but we'll definitely look at it together when we have the opportunity to review your members' profiles together. The last type of attribute we have are custom attributes. So you guys have a lot of custom attributes in the database you provided to me. And I want to talk a little bit about this. So these custom attributes work in a couple of different ways. One, we can view all of our custom attributes in this window. Okay, so not so bad, but obviously there are a lot here. We'll also be able to search your database by these custom attributes. So we'll be able to send out target emails or create targeted exports based around these attributes. Maybe you only want to look at people who have specific designations or in specific districts. Of course, this do not contact is going to be a biggie. So searching by all these attributes, the more custom attributes you have in here, the more cumbersome they become to search because it's going to be difficult to find the attribute that you're looking for. In addition, you're going to see in a second, we're going to review profile owner attribute security and then attribute security. What those 2 are what your members can do to the attributes that are in their profile on the front end. So if I'm logged into my profile, can I edit my email address? Can I only view it? Can I edit the notes field? Or maybe I can't even view it because they're more internal notes. Different things like that. What can I view? What can I edit? What can I not see at all? We're also going to be looking at how your members can view other members' profiles. So we'll also be looking at what fields can I see in another member's profile, or what can they see in my profile. Obviously, we can't do anything to each other's profiles because we shouldn't be allowed to edit each other's information. So because of this, we're going to be looking at profile owner and attribute security. These two things are kind of like numbers 3 and 4 of your homework. So I'm going to go ahead and first look at profile owner attribute security. Now you'll notice there are columns that will be created for every member type that you guys have. So right now that means there would be like 23 plus member type columns. And you guys would have to go into each column and determine, okay, in my member's profile, what can they edit their primary address? Can they see it? Can they not see it at all? And you'll have to do that for every one of these attributes. So we have built-in attributes at the top. Then we get into, and this says NA right now, but this will be, they'll be available for you to do this as well. So you'll be able to, here we go. Prospect's a great example. Can they do anything to the 2018 member level? What, can they see these items? Can they not see them? Can they edit them? And you're going to have to go through every single one of these for every single one of those member types. So see how having all of those custom attributes and having all those member types can become cumbersome?
Right.
So you only have to do it one time. So if we have to, we have to. But it creates a lot of work and, in my experience, a lot of confusion, especially even when you're just searching your database from day to day. So what I mean by that, well, I don't want to skip around too much. This is kind of just one example. Attribute security is the second example. So this is where you'll determine what your members can see in other members' profiles. So we would use our drop down over here in the left-hand corner, and we would need to determine, okay, as an admin, what can I do to prospect profiles? What can I do to other admin profiles? What can I do to all of my member types? So all 20 member types will be listed in columns over here to the right. Same thing for, then you'd have to go to each of your members. So this is going to be a list of 20 or 24. And you'll have to go through each one of these and determine for each member type what the permissions are. And you'll have to do that for all of the member types down this column and across the board here. So this is one big example as to why I suggest keeping the custom attributes to a limit and also keeping your member types to a limit. And I'm kind of like speeding a little bit through, but am I making some sense? Do you guys have any questions on this right now?
Yeah.
So something else that I noticed in your database, y'all, you also have a lot of fields over here to the right. All of these things here. To me, this is what I would refer to as historical data. So this is information that, I don't know, how often would you say you reference columns CH through CX? Like every day or like maybe once a month?
It's all historical data, but we do need to see that because we do need to track when they were members.
Okay. So sometimes what I will recommend is if this is something that you need to reference, depending on how often you reference this information, if these are pieces of information you reference every single day, or even maybe once a week, it would maybe be worth adding to the database. But if it's information that you're referencing like once a month or once every other week, my suggestion would be saving this. So we have what we call a media manager in our product, and it's like an in-house file store. So what a lot of my associations will do is save this exact database in our media manager. So it's still in MemberClicks. It's just not creating the custom attributes that clutter up the profiles. They can still access it from MemberClicks. It'll open up this Excel document and they can still search it and sort it, but it's not making it more cumbersome to search by the things that you're searching by every single day. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know. So it's So it's still searchable, like I can still search by people based on these. Would it be in an Excel spreadsheet or would it be in a database?
Will you guys repeat that for me?
Would it be searchable just via the Excel spreadsheet or would it be searchable in the database?
So only these items would be searchable only in this Excel spreadsheet, which we could keep in a store manager in MemberClicks. The rest of this stuff I added in, I think starting, I'm not sure I added in quite yet the donation amounts because I felt like this was historical data as well. I think I created everything up to state board lists. And then everything else would not be technically searchable in the MemberClicks database, but you could still access this file where you could reference it.
I have to do reports based off of those donations on a quarterly basis for ethics. That's constantly changing and updating. So I have to have those donations in there.
Okay.
And the other thing is with the historical data as to when they've been members, we like to show that to the members, especially in their profiles, of that we know starting with 2000 or 96 or whatever we started at, how long they've been members of our association. So that is, I don't want that just in an Excel spreadsheet.
So what if we instead created one custom attribute that said member in previous years or member in previous member history, and then instead of it being 2001 yes or no, 2002 yes or no, instead if we could actually create like a checkbox of 2001 up until the date 2017, and you can check off each year on the list of which years they were a member.
That is currently how it is in our database.
So it would be one custom attribute, not 17.
Yes, that would be great.
We could also maybe somehow work something out like that for donation information. No, we wouldn't be able to do that. We'll have to add all of these. Okay. So, and I'm going to jump to my next call. So,
I don't want to update that. I mean, I was planning on having to put the PAC stuff in separately anyway. So if you just don't want to upload that, I can do that after anyway.
What can you do after?
Wherever.
We're going to have to think about
Yeah.
the donation.
Yeah.
Will you say that one more time?
We have to figure. I need to think about how to do the PAC separately. So
this is kind of where I want to leave things, guys. Is if you can, so we've got your prospects in here, so we have some real-time data, so we can move forward with our trainings, which is really the biggest. Ma'am?
Can you hold on for just a second? The school next door just got out, so they're very loud and screamy.
Yeah. Yes, you're totally fine. Let me know when it's better.
We can hear you better now. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Awesome, no worries. But since we have the data, real-time data that we can do our trainings with, and then next after this, I want to finish this database training with you guys. We've got content training, we've got forms, we've got social community, which I think you guys are going to do next week while I'm gone with Jay. I think we talked about that. My biggest suggestion would be just put some brain power towards kind of what we've talked about. How, is there any way that we could group in some of these member types? Now, if it's by different membership periods or lengths, we won't be able to do that. They have to be separate, unfortunately. I know we can get rid of the reoccurring.
Yeah.
Just think a little bit about it. think a little bit more on those custom attributes and if we can put any of those together. And then when we talk next time, if you come up with any ideas, and I'm going to be doing the same thing, and I might run a couple ideas past you. If we come up with some cool ideas that we think could work, then we'll talk a little bit about that. Or if you come back and you go, Adrienne, it is going to have to be what it is. We know it's going to be a little bit more work, but this is just what it needs to be. If that's the case, then that's just what it is. And then I'll plan on importing it after that conversation, and that won't be difficult for me, and we can still continue through our trainings. Does that sound like an okay plan for us moving forward?
Okay, so I have a question about invoicing, and this might help clarify some things. So if we just invoice them and then they can do partial payments, we don't have to. Right. We can just have a checkbox as to they prefer to pay quarterly or semi-annually or monthly, but they all pay, and then when we just invoice them, it's just the remainder. That's pretty much what we do currently.
Okay, that's a great idea. Now, it's not going to send out automatic, actually, the automatic notifications will still continue to go out reminding them to pay the pending amount or the partial amount of the invoice. So that is something that could work.
Yeah.
I'm going to think a little bit more on that. I'm going to talk to my director. I'm going to talk to her later today anyways and see if she has any ideas as well that I'd like to kind of bring to the table to see if there's anything we can do. But that's a great idea. So let's keep thinking along those lines. And then, like I said, when we talk next time, we'll get a plan in place, and then I'll know exactly how to import it. But I'd rather us have some brainstorming and make sure we're doing this the perfect way and the way that works best for you guys and the way the product works best to make sure you're getting the best benefit out of the product is kind of where I'm coming from.
Because the other thing is, if we could turn off some of the automated invoices for the people that are, currently on the recurring through our authorized.net until we get everybody fully up there, and turn off some of those, that might be a little bit easier.
Okay.
To go down to just the 10 member types.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I need to get to my next call.
No,
I'm 7 minutes late. I'm so sorry that I didn't have more time for us today. I'm going to send you guys a follow-up email with a couple of homework items. Not going to ask you to do that attribute security or profile owner attribute security yet, obviously, because not all the attributes and not all the member types are in there, so that wouldn't make sense. But the items that you can be working on, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and start working on that while I'm gone. And I'm going to send some recap info, and then if you guys want to go ahead and schedule some time with me when I get back the week of the 10th for us to pick back up on our trainings. And then if you can schedule your social community training with Jay while I'm gone, that would be dynamite as well. Does that sound okay with y'all?
Perfect. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Expect that follow-up email from me probably later this afternoon. I've got a
Okay.